Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds.
Hi, I am Daniel Domenech. We are here at the Arizona Worm Farm. I'm going to be showing you around today. The area that we're currently standing in is not functional. This is mostly just for fun. This is where we host some classes. This area is kind of our outdoor pavilion space, and it's mostly just a gathering area. This is my dog, Bird. Bird is not technically an employee here, but she comes to work with me every day. She has killed one rabbit.
Daniel, what is your position and why did you start working at the Arizona Worm Farm?
Sure. I started working at the Arizona Worm Farm 3 years ago. I was hired as the front end manager. So essentially customer facing operations and a little bit of management for most departments. I started working here because I moved out here and I needed a job and I was interested in sustainable agriculture. And so I have a background only kind of recreationally in compost, and then I went pro. So now I get to explain to people the processes of compost, vermicompost, and all the good that that can do for your soil.
Okay, just give us an overview of what operations you have here at the Arizona Worm Farm. What's your typical customer, and why do they come to you, and how do you help them not only with compost but also to grow?
Yeah, so we do a lot here on the farm. So Arizona Worm Farm does not fully encapsulate all that we do. So the heart of our business is actually going to be making compost. So we do that in our big windrows, our heated windrows. But we also have no-till gardens where we produce food for ourselves, and then we also sell the excess. We raise worms, obviously. Those worms add tremendous benefit to your soil, to your gardens. So we will breed the worms, and then we also have employee worms who never go anywhere. They just stay in the wedges and keep working, producing their castings, which is a further refined form of compost. In addition to that, we have our sale of plants. So we'll sell plants, primarily fruits, veggies, flowers, and herbs. And we only ever put out what's appropriate for our region and the season. On top of that, we raise another critter who's not exactly a worm. We raise black soldier fly larvae. We do that because they're incredible decomposers who eliminate food waste. And then we use their live bodies as a feed. So we can feed them to poultry and reptiles. And then we will dry them. We'll sell them kind of for a more shelf-stable option. And then we'll make a fertilizer out of them. So we started making something that's similar to a fish fertilizer, but substitute the fish for the larva.
And then you also do classes, correct? Because I know that you told me you are in charge of the compost classes.
Yes. So we offer classes pretty much every weekend. Sometimes we will do some weekday classes, but essentially we cover classes that are focused on gardening, improving everyone's ability to grow here in the low desert. So those classes are going to be your kind of intro to gardening and then your advanced gardening. So for people who are trying to grow tomatoes and they might have started off really well and they want to just get better, we offer more advanced classes. But then we offer some kind of more fun ones, still incorporating the plants that we grow. So we have like a loofah bar soap making class where we take the loofah that we grew here and then we'll make bars of soap. That's a fun one. We make teas. We'll do some food kind of cooking classes. So like it's summer right now, so everyone's growing roselle hibiscus. So then by November, we're going to be offering classes on how to harvest, save your seeds for that roselle plant, make jams, jellies, teas. So fun cooking classes as well.
It's really a tiny home that's really comfortable. You got a patio, got shade cover, nice big beautiful glass, but the walls look like they're made from your own hand mix of some sort of adobe.
Yeah.
So tell me what's in them. You got to have clay in there. Looks like straw. What else do you have?
That's basically it. Yeah. So we did a workshop where we invited somebody who's built these structures before. They came out. We hosted the workshop. And so people bought tickets. They learned how to build this structure. The idea behind it was Zach, who owns this farm. He wanted to provide some housing for the unhoused members of our community. So in his mind, if he could show some kind of political figures in the city this proof of concept that we can do this inexpensively, off the grid.
In Africa, a lot of places, and just even in Phoenix.
Yes.
So people can use this. Now, your process, do you have that on your website?
No.
To show? So you got to let the world know it. You do something great, you got to let everybody know, right? So, but when you built that, did that stuff go on wet and then it dried?
Yeah.
So you didn't like cook it in an oven or anything like bricks?
No.
And it worked?
Yeah.
And it insulated?
Yeah, it's great. If it weren't for this, so Zach's Vanity put this big glass in here, it would be way more efficient, but he wanted people to be able to look inside. Yeah. So he put these big glass windows. But if
It's got the shade in there. Yeah.
If it were all adobe, if it were all the straw bale mud mix, then it'd be super efficient. It still is, and it all runs off solar panels. We've got refrigerator, AC, we've got a stove.
We'll have to talk about that with Zach and see if he wants to show what you got to the world.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to the next area. But Daniel, we're in your compost area.
Yep.
Behind you, I see different sources of product that you bought. Looks like wood chips, dairy, or not dairy, but horse manure, and maybe vegetables and that sort of thing. And you're using the front end loader, but you also behind us have a big John Deere with the turner, similar to we have. Do you infuse the turner with water as you're tilling?
No.
You don't do it?
Now, ours is too big, and we don't have a really good way of doing that. So we've kind of, we work with what we've got. So the John Deere tiller, or turner, that one's great. It turns all of our windrows, keeping them well aerated. And then the water, we just have a water truck that runs in the summer every single day for the entire day. Just hosing down, making sure that our new windrows get plenty of water to start. And then as they start breaking down, it requires less water, but we still have to do it every day.
Are you measuring the thermophilic process?
Yes.
You're getting it up over 131 for a few weeks, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And then you're turning it. So how long do you generally compost? Because you're using the compost in your blends, and you're selling some of it off, and you're feeding your worms with it. How often are you moving these piles? What do you?
Every day. So in the busy times of the year, we have a hard time keeping up with our demand. So essentially, we just try to.
60 days, maybe?
No.
90?
6 months.
Okay.
From what Luis is doing back there right now, blending together the correct proportions, landscape waste and manure, 6 months.
Okay.
That's fast for us.
Okay. Yeah. So you got a nice mature product when you're done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Behind us, I think, Joe, you caught the John Deere. You also have over here a very nice looking home, nicer than some people's homes.
Yeah.
Is your chicken coop, and it's mobile.
Yeah.
Do you ever take it out to have the excrement or the chicken poop come out from that? Or how do you, I'm sure you take some of your, the poop from the chicken, no?
Yes, it is not a priority for us since the scale of poop production to the scale of compost is negligible.
Right.
But yeah, when we clean out their bedding, we'll toss it into the windrows. Unfortunately, we no longer take out that mobile chicken coop. We got really tired of feeding the coyotes around here. So they just stay in that enclosed space over yonder.
And you fenced it in. You even got fences netting on the top to keep things from coming in. And you got free range chickens, so they can come out and play, or they can go back into their homes. So really good. Okay, let's go to the next area. Okay, Daniel, we're now in the food forest. Tell me about this.
We've just entered our food forest. So over here, we have over 100 edible trees. We started using native trees to build the microclimate that allows us to then grow peaches, plums, apricots, and some tropicals like mangoes and guava as well. And out of this food forest, we can harvest something to eat every day of the year from these over 100 edible trees.
And I love the idea of bringing in the natives everywhere, right?
Yeah.
No matter where you're farming in the world, because the native plants have co-evolved with everything underground, all the animals, all the biology. So when you have either a perimeter or you mix them in, it makes a big difference for, avoiding diseases and water consumption. I mean, it just, you name it, it has it. So what a cool space. And you've grown this in such a short period of time.
5 years.
Yeah, which is amazing. And you use the product to feed all your employees, and then you sell off the balance.
Correct.
And or if there's any rotten stuff, you feed it to your worms or to your larvae.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we have more waste than we can handle, we always have our windrows that can help us out.
Yeah. So you got a windrow at first because of the acidity, right? you don't want that for your worms.
Depends on what it is.
But depends on what you grow.
Uh-huh.
So great. What else do we have? You got other gardens down here. This is the food forest, which is big trees and shade, and it's great.
Yeah.
What's going down on the other gardens?
Yeah, so we have 2 no-till gardens. Those are going to be growing more of our kind of like veggies, and then we always have flowers in there. We always try to be strategic about what we're planting. So we will incorporate companion plants depending on the season. Those change out. And then in the food forest, we don't fertilize. We just let the forest do what the forest does. And in the gardens,
It's its own organic when the leaves drop.
exactly, we try not to pick up anything. And then in the gardens, we'll just put on compost. And that's essentially it. We've amended that soil with enough compost to where we have worms working in there. And those worms do a lot of that processing.
And you're also, with the, you're doing regenerative farming or permaculture, permaculture, if that's what you want to call it. But you're, by adding the compost in there, you're keeping a layer of protection from the sun. You're allowing for that activity going on in the soil itself.
Yeah.
And a big part, though, is what you said is the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when to bring the legumes in or when to, because some plants are takers and some are fixers.
Yeah. So we are now standing in front of what we call Larva Land. This is where we are raising the larva. So they are being fed. Catering waste has been brought in. All we have to do to feed it to the larva is pass it through this big old grinder over here. So between catering waste and spent brewer's grain, that's pretty much all these larvae are feeding. And at no point in this process are we adding any additional moisture. All of the water, all of the moisture content comes from the food that it's already getting.
So that's a little grinder.
That's our grinder over there. And then this is Larva Land, where we are feeding into each of these trays basically a gallon of food waste, ground up food waste, and a gallon of spent brewer's grain, something like every 2 to 3 days. And so there's no substrate in here. It's just the food material, and that's all they need. So these larvae are, and if you want, you can take a look.
Yeah.
Very happy to be in here.
The stuff we see in the bottom of our garbage can and freak out, right? We see this stuff.
It depends. So essentially, you know, maggot, derogatory. We don't like to call these guys maggots. They are larvae.
Right.
But your housefly does not give you the same benefits. Houseflies are pesky. Larvae that turn into black soldier fly are not. The fly has no mouth, no stinger, no possible way to pass disease. So it's not a vector for anything problematic.
And it's great for farmers.
And it's great
for worms and everybody.
Exactly.
So interesting. But we see big black flies and they do freak us out.
Yes, they are a little intimidating, but the larvae are harmless. Mouths so small that they cannot pierce the skin of a tomato, but once there's a crack in that skin, they can clear out everything soft and smooshy inside.
Wow. And it's kind of a big part of the ecosystem, right, of the food web.
Yep.
And it's first time I've actually seen anybody actually creating the larva, and you got a lot of it. So for this bin, you got to take each one off and feed it.
Yep.
And then put it back together.
Yeah, we'll just kind of like slide them over one next to the other, feed gallon, move on. So we have barrels of slop that we'll just scoop up and do that.
And so you have your start. At some point, you rotate to your finish. How long are they in this area?
About a month. So
Another month.
when they get in here, they're in here for about a month because that's when all conditions are met and everything's favorable for them, about a month they'll turn into a
So
fly.
the other area where you're in, we call that your incubator or your...
Yeah, the love shack and then the nursery's in there.
Yeah, and then you're taking the stuff out of that nursery and you bring it here.
Correct.
And then you feed it with brewer's yeast and where are you getting your vegetable content from?
Yeah, so there's a catering company at Lasta. They bring their catering waste here. We grind it up, and then it just becomes food for the larvae.
It becomes enough to... Do you notice any particular waste does better for larvae generation? No.
So
Beets, tomatoes,
meat is the kind of the fastest way to get them up to size. If we wanted to increase their size the fastest, it would be meat.
and normally in our industry, we stay away from meats, right?
Yes.
Certainly you don't want to feed worms meats. You don't want to compost meats.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, the absolute opposite, which is great. Because now you have a use for meat waste.
Yeah, so there are some regulations, so we don't feed them waste anymore or meat waste anymore. So now it is just that
They like the meat.
But we know if it's in there, exactly. If we can feed them early on, they get up to size much faster. These larvae can eat twice their body weight in food each day.
So they like the protein.
They like the protein. The protein helps a lot.
Vegetable with protein in it. That kind of thing. So maybe soy or.
So we have a partnership with the Phoenix Open, and so when that happens, we do take in hot dog, chili waste, and in addition to them getting big really fast, they also have a nice little spicy smell to them.
Oh wow. Yeah, well, this is definitely not a smell that all people would enjoy.
No.
No. Well, great. What an operation. And then it comes. So how does it work? You come in here and then you come back out.
Yeah.
Listen,
These guys should be closer to pupating, so they should be pretty dark and immobile.
So pupating is they're turning. It's like a
caterpillar turning into a butterfly, but this is the caterpillar cocoon, if you will.
And why do you wait? Why not just take them here when they're white and raw? This is it's built, so it's got no protein in it, or what's the?
So ideally, like I said, most of these larvae are not going to get to this phase. We want to use them before this because essentially when they start turning dark, they are already converting a lot of their stored fat reserves into using that energy to turn into a fly. So if we want the most nutritionally dense
right before
when they're big and still white.
Why do you wait on these black ones? What do you use these for?
You got to make more larvae. We'll take these, put them into the dark area over there.
That's where we feed the dark area.
Okay. Yeah.
Comes around. It's all a circle. Right?
Yep.
Daniel, tell me how these tents work. Tell me the actual process.
Sure. So when we have larvae that we've already raised up and we know that they're going to pupate, so when they're pre-pupa, they turn dark, they stop moving. We know that they are then going to turn into a fly. We do not need all of them to turn into flies, just enough to keep our reproduction going. So in this dark part of the tent, we've got our trays that are going to be full of those pre-pupa, so they're about to emerge as flies. There's a gap between this dark area and this well-lit white area. So they're gonna go instinctively from the dark to the light, and then essentially what we have over here is like a singles, mingles, hookup area. So the flies do come in male and female. Under that little shade over in the corner there, there's gonna be some attractant, which is whatever stinky stuff we could come up with that day. Pretty often it's just rotten food and chicken manure. And then on top of that, we set wooden strips that are called eggies. And the flies will go and lay their eggs inside of these strips. A single female fly is laying something like 800 eggs in their 3-day life as a fly.
Wow. And then how do you get them back into the black?
Yeah, so we don't. They will go from eggy strip laid in there to our nursery over in here. So when they are hatching as the kind of baby larva, they are smaller, much smaller than a grain of rice. So they're a pretty big drowning risk. So we'll take out those full eggies, and then we're going to remain here where we have them sitting over moisture-controlled food, which is basically just chicken feed with a little bit of water. And then all of these tiny eggs will start to hatch, and they'll fall into this really oatmeal consistency food, and then they'll start growing from there. After about 3 days, we're no longer concerned about them being a drowning risk, and then they'll be able to go into Larva Land.
Okay, where is Larva Land?
Larva Land is just over yonder, and I'll show you.
And then eventually, somehow, they got to get back into that black.
Yes, so once the larvae are done eating, they've gotten big enough, they are going to try to turn into a fly. But we don't want them to do that there. We want them to do that selectively in here.
Okay, so some of that's where you get your larva for your use, and then the rest of it's going here for the flies, or everything's going
a very lucky few get to make it in here. Everybody else is either ground up and used in the fertilizer or fed to an animal.
Wow, okay. So it goes all the way into this area. And so tell me about the process. How long does it all take to do what you're doing?
Sure. So going from a laid fly egg back to a fly, it's about a month and 3 days. So over the course of 1 month, those larvae are eating. That's the only part of their life cycle where they can eat. So they're going to eat all they can over the course of that month, and then we'll start to see that they are big, they'll stop moving, they'll turn dark, and we know, all right, if we want these to turn into flies, we bring them in over here, and then we let that cycle continue. So they only spend about 3 or 5 days as a fly, and in that time, they cannot eat anything. All they can do is have sex, have kids, and die.
Okay. And so with worms, we know we can continuously do it all year long in Arizona, but the summer they slow down when it's 120 degrees out, no matter our best efforts. Right? And then in the wintertime, they do very well, right? How about these? Do you have a slow period? Can you do it? So you got 1 month and 3 days, which is 12 cycles minus the 3 days. So you got, what, 10, 11 cycles?
Something like that.
And it works year round. You notice there's a time that's a little better?
Yeah, in the winter, we'll slow down more. In the summer, in the peak of summer, we'll also slow down a little bit. It is just a little bit harder to cool this off.
But it's a little different than the worms.
Yeah.
Actually, the winter's a little slower because you got to try to keep this warm.
Correct. Yeah, we want like 80 to 90 degrees in here.
It's just hard to get without spending a fortune on your program. So, wow. Do you have any metrics on how many? Because you're not going in tons. You're going in pounds or ounces or whatever. How much do you?
On cruise control, every week we can pump out 400 pounds of larva.
Wow.
So we don't necessarily wait every month to start a new round. So we will have weekly overlapping production. So it's about 400 pounds a week of larva, and that's essentially a waterless protein source.
And then the question is where do you put it? And you can dry it out and use it for a lot of different things. You're using it for your own uses, and both feeding the animals and the using in your mixes. But again, it's what I love are the products that they're usually more expensive, but there's those 2 or 3 products that we put into a lot of our blends, small percentage, 1 to 5%, that make a huge difference in the quality. People don't see it. When you're going to a box store or retail store and you're comparing apples to apples, you're really not. You're comparing apples to oranges. There's a big difference in quality of compost across the board. Sure. And not just compost, your soil amendments all over. So this is a really cool, I've done a lot of crazy things. I haven't done this.
Yeah, this one's pretty wild.
This one I'll buy from you.
It only gets grosser.
Now at the Love Shack. What's this all about?
Sure. So the Love Shack is part of our operations for the black soldier fly larva. In order for us to get to the larva, we have to have the flies do it. So they do it in the Love Shack. And
here we go.
These flies are tropical, and Phoenix is not tropical. So again, we have to modify our conditions to make it favorable for these flies to reproduce. They are less likely to reproduce unless they have something like 80% humidity. So you can't feel it through the video, but it is balmy in here.
I can feel it.
It is.
So you have like basically a little wet wall? Is that little?
Yeah, so that actually does cooling. So, we're constantly battling the elements here. So in the summertime, that thing's gonna be running cooling. And then in the winter, this does need to be heated up substantially more than it does.
Where's the moisture coming from? You've got some kind of sprinklers or some kind of sprays?
The moisture comes out of our DIY disco fogger.
Wow.
So
made your own. Okay.
Yeah, we just run water into this tank. There's a little flow stopper, and then when we need more humidity, which we currently do not, it will just kind of send out fog, this really, really moist air. So if you're here on a really cold morning, it will appear as if it's a discotheque in here.
So was this a container at one point? I see it's all insulated.
No.
Or is it just a framed building?
Just a framed building that we...
You didn't even insulate the roof. You don't need to.
No.
So part of it is sunlight.
Yes. Yeah. So in addition to the conditions that they want, 80% humidity, they also need something like a 12-hour light cycle in order for them to successfully reproduce.
So you have light, but you also have lights.
Correct. We want to make sure that they have as much light as possible. So going over 12 hours is fine. But going under, so if there ever happens to be a cloud here in Phoenix, that could mess up our day. So we just want to make sure that they consistently have that light. The other tricky thing is this is actually all greenhouse roofing, but we found out that too much light creates too much heat, and so we kind of partially covered up a section of this. So
that's funny how you have to play with it to get it to work. Now, the listeners can't smell this either, but it's not the most pleasant smell in here. The larvae is the reproduction process of what these flies are creating, and then you're taking that and you're feeding it. Well, we talked about the chickens, feeding it to chickens. What else do you use the larvae for?
The larva we'll use for making a fertilizer, so similar to a fish emulsion, but we replace fish with larva. And it also has some unique biostimulating properties because it's comprised of insect bodies. Basically, that plant responds as if it is under duress from an insect invasion, which is typically kind of a last-ditch effort to try to have kids. So it'll produce more blooms, more fruit. We've also seen it kind of wake up stunted trees, so it kind of induces this growth response as well.
Really helps the resilience and the disease fighting, right? So you're using 100% of this right now in your products, or are you selling larvae as well?
So we sell the larva. We'll sell them alive or we'll sell them dried. And then we have plenty to make the emulsion as well. So that BSFL.
So I got to talk to you about that because I use some different emulsions in one of our products, but we'll talk about. I don't need very much of it.
Sure.
Because that's when you're using this, you don't need a lot to create a lot. But well, this is kind of a cool thing to have in here.
Thank you. This machine started off as a rental. This is where we do our compost screening. But we liked it so much after we started using that we kept it. So basically we'll just drop our compost straight from the windrow up into the hopper, and then it'll separate it out into our 3 kind of grades. Our finished screened compost, this one's ready to use in our raised bed mix or for sale just as compost. And then these are gonna be our excess, our overs from the windrows, and those really just get used either back into the windrow or wherever we need to fill in a gap somewhere on the farm.
Right. And I notice a lot of the paper or plastic or whatever
Yes.
sheds off of it into this big pile.
Yes.
So this is great for, I love whenever I'm doing gardens to put this, not for the growing, but for the pathways and that sort of thing. Because eventually it does break down, but it takes a little longer for it to break down. And once you lay it out, you can pick up or you can blow off the garbage off of it. Now, are you getting wood chips from landscapers or any of that? Are you using some of that in your mix?
Yeah, so we get a couple of different inputs for our compost windrows. Landscape waste, the city started the landfill waste diversion program. And so
From Denali?
yes, and then they started kind of a separate operation. So it used to be that we'd get the landscape waste already ground up from Denali. But now we have some landscapers. So in addition to that, we have landscapers who will also come and bring their fresh landscape waste chipped up already for us. And then we'll incorporate that into the windrows as well.
Okay. All right. So you're putting that in with your compost as your composting.
Yeah. So, we have our recipe for that too. Balanced proportion. Yeah. Horse manure and landscape waste. Those are the kind of base materials. And then whatever other fun stuff we have around the farm.
So let's go take a look at that next.
So we are currently standing in our worm wedges. This is the method that we have found works best for us for collecting castings from the worms. Castings just being that euphemism for their poop. So we have kind of a process where we're always chasing our own tail. All of our wedges started off as 1-foot mounds of compost, and then we will feed onto each wedge 1 inch of compost a week. And that will build a pile out. So you can see here, these are sloping piles where we are feeding on already broken down compost. The worms are interested in the fresh organic material, so they're gonna go towards that new food source, which means on the other side of a wedge, so like over here, worms are being fed that way, and that means that the vast majority of them will be on this side, and we can harvest safely from the other side. So after enough time has elapsed, and we feel confident that the worms are over there, we can start breaking off a 6-inch section of this wedge, and that's how we'll harvest, and then we'll screen out our castings for sale and for incorporation in our raised bed mix.
Okay, so you're using red wigglers.
Yes.
And you're using mostly compost as a feed.
Yes. Yeah.
And now we're using a wedge. How are you keeping these moist?
Fantastic question. So summers are not getting any cooler here. So we have historically just kept it under 100% shade. Really diligent about watering. We have thermometers in all of our wedges to make sure that the temperatures are staying low enough. But we've invested this year in a water cooler. So we are chilling our water, and then we're going to be watering our wedges over the summer with cooled water.
And are you irrigating them or just hosing?
This job is pretty much done by one guy, Javi, and Javi just comes out here every day and waters all of the wedges every day.
Wow. By hand?
By hand with a hose, just pulling it out.
Well, it works. It's nice and clean. I love the operation. So when I was here a couple of years ago, I can't even remember, you just had a little space over there in the corner. And so it's expanded. You've got this big structure, which I'm sure you have to deal with permitting and the nightmare of working with the government, right?
Something like that. Yeah. So we have expanded our operation and technically shrank our footprint. So we used to borrow our neighbor's land, and then they put up a fence. So now we've kind of condensed back down to the 10 acres we were originally on, but we've expanded in the space that we've got.
Okay, and so this is what you're using with the worms.
Yes.
And the worms are available. You're the retail guy, so they're available in plastic bags over there.
Yes, yeah. So we've got polywoven plastic bags where we'll sell the worms. These worms don't get sold. These are employees. They stay here. They work for us. They get fed. But yeah, we have breeding operations, and those worms we do
you're
sell.
Actually selling the worms themselves.
We sell the worms.
But these worms, they stay in the piles. They theoretically can stay in the piles for 100 years if they're fed correctly. Right?
In the 3 years I've been here and in the 7 years that the farm has been operating, we've only had to supplement these wedges with worms one time.
Okay, great. And then you also put them in totes, right? You ever get to that point?
The only time we'll put them in totes, it's those like 17-gallon plastic totes. That is a specific product, our ready to vermicompost tote. And that's just going to be essentially a plastic container with bedding material and worms already set up for you.
Okay. Okay. Say they call it pit run, right? When you have just the worms and you're trying to establish a new garden. So they're usually in more moisture, a lot of bedding material, and it's kind of the starting point. So when you start, you have a foot of compost, but with that compost, you have pit run in there. And then from there, you're building your population as you feed it every week.
We did that once 7 years ago.
Right.
Since then, just that one time, but there were still worms in there that we had to supplement with. But yeah, we never added more worms other than that one time.
When you first started.
Yeah, first time 7 years ago. And since then, we just walk these wedges back and forth, feeding, harvesting. Once it gets down to a 1 foot section, we knock it down. We build the other direction. We start harvesting on the other side.
Great. And I will keep getting interrupted by
yes.
Your birds over here.
This is our VIP coop. So we normally don't have roosters, but we decided, well, when we got in our round of chicks, those chicks, some of them turned out to be dudes. And so we kept this one rooster to see if we could fertilize some eggs. But this is a very small sample of our total chicken population.
Do you ever feed them the worms?
We don't feed them the worms. We have a different critter on the farm, the black soldier fly larva, who is more ideal for nutritional content for feeding to poultry and reptiles.
We're going through the gardens, and now we're in an area that will be a future tilapia house.
Yep, hydroponic gardens. It's going to be that whole system where the fish waste gets used to fertilize plants.
Oh, they have nitrogen, high nitrogen.
And then the tilapia will be enjoying our black soldier fly larva that we raise here. So we're still in early days on setting up.
Eat any of that tilapia, or just kind of grow it for your purpose?
I'm going to eat some of it. I don't know about everybody else.
Okay, good. All right.
Taco Tuesdays, right?
Taco Tuesday.
All right. Well, great. We'll come back when this is all up and running.
Hey, Daniel, just real quick, do you have any specials, or is there anything that you want to tell the community about on why they should visit?
Yeah, I mean, we're always open to the public, so anyone is welcome to come and see. If you're a new gardener, we offer classes for you. And then, right now, summertime, come early. We recommend that everyone come and visit with a full bottle of water. But, anyone who's interested in growing anything, the food that you get at the grocery store, that feeds you, but it really only does so much. The food that you grow at home, that feeds you, and it's a higher quality food. So growing your own food at home is super valuable. And we'd love to show you how to do that.
We have a more minimal variety that we grow in the summer because of the heat.
Yep.
But there's a lot of things like squash that does super well, but it doesn't have quite the variety we have in the fall, the winter, and the spring. Yeah. Still, 4 seasons in Arizona means 4 food seasons. People all say, "Oh, I want to live in a place with 4 seasons." Well, you go back east or Midwest, you really have 1 season growing. Yeah. Here you go 4. So. And it seems like you've taken advantage. And as we walked through the food forest, it was noticeably cooler. No sun beating on us. It's beautiful. In all the other areas, you have structures to keep the shade. And you supplement with water. And I think Zach's long-term village, his vision is to try to use the amount of water that is coming from the sun, which is an expensive from the rain. It's a ambitious program, but the idea of being completely circular is what you guys are doing. It started out in it takes generations and generations really to create good farms. And you guys have a pretty good start. So great to have you on the podcast. And for anybody who wants to come and see a farm right in town, 19th Avenue and Baseline, everything's going on here. Great place to buy your supplies as a gardener too.
Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.